Hi there, and welcome to our fourth Manna Moments. We try to get out for a walk about 3 or 4 times a week, particularly during this lockdown. Keeping to our local areas, I'm finding new ways of getting from A to B. So what's the best thing about a good walk? The way it builds up my stamina. Each day going a little further, trying that little hill, reaching the step target of my phone app. Fresh air and exercise seems to clear the mind somehow. And it's a time for talking to each other, retelling stories full of incidents, accidents and humour. A chance to reassess the past and make plans for the future. Companionship on the journey as the Israelites had in their wanderings through the desert's important too. Walking together is so much better for most of us than walking alone. It's also safer. Walking provides time and space for encounters of all sorts, with the natural world, weather, wildlife, birds and beasties. Fellow walkers going about their trade, postmen, builders. During this lockdown period, I've been quite charmed to see chalk-marked games appearing on the pavements, much as I used to mark when I was a child. I'm sorely tempted to let my inner child experience them again, though I think my attempt would be rather more clumsy than my recollection or imagination would prefer. As we're walking and meeting others, we sometimes overhear snatches of their conversation, some of which sounds really intriguing. And there's also the chance of meeting up with someone who, through thought, word or action, changes the course of our walk, generally for the better. A bit like that walk from Jerusalem to Emmaus. I like to think that the two people walking were a married couple, talking over everything that had happened in the last week, trying to make sense out of all that mess, trying to see if any good could come out of it. I don't know, maybe they were talking quietly, or perhaps loudly, perhaps even making wild gestures. And then they're joined by a third person who asks them what they're talking about. It's Jesus, but they don't recognise him. They're astonished that someone travelling from Jerusalem, as they were, doesn't seem to know what had just happened. So they fill him in, all the details. The parade into the city, the teaching in the temple, the last meal together, the arrest, the trial, the crucifixion and the death. But it was what came next that was incredible. About how some of the women followers had gone to the tomb after the Sabbath to wash and anoint the body for burial, as was the usual practice. But the body wasn't there. It was empty, apart from some angels who gave them the news that Jesus wasn't dead, he was alive. As they walked, Jesus helped them understand all that had happened, how it was all part of the plan as told by the prophets, putting it so that they could understand it better. When they got home, they invited Jesus for a meal so that they could continue to chat with him. In their shock and confusion over the past events, they hadn't recognised their fellow traveller. And it was only when Jesus blessed and broke the bread that they recognised him. In that moment of the breaking of the bread, God was breaking into their lives in this first meal of the new creation, completing the circle begun when the first fruit was eaten in the Garden of Eden. The resurrected Jesus restores memory to those two followers, and he empowers them to continue God's story in that they tell others of their meeting with him. My Manna Moment this week? Well, it's that Jesus invites us all to accompany him on the journey. Sometimes walking, sometimes hopping and skipping, sometimes running, crawling, leaping, or even limping. Remembering, as Rupert Alpert wrote, that we're all just walking each other home. And what's the second best thing about my walk? Putting the kettle on when I get home. What's your Manna moment been? See you next week.